Hey everyone, this is Randy Kim from the Banh Chronicles podcast, and this really gives me such an honorable pleasure to bring back one of my favorite guests that I had on several years ago. Her name is Milk, otherwise goes by Connie Kayleen. She's a singer, songwriter, artist, activist who pens anthems in hopes to spark healing and empathy. Her viral song "Quiet" was named a Billboard #1 protest song. NPR's featured American anthems, and a top feminist anthem of all time by Harper's Bazaar. Recently, Ellie UK named Milk as a top 40 women of hope. Milk also composes songs for film, television, and artists from John Legend to Natasha Bedingfield. Milk has gone viral again with a nurse song titled Sisters of Winter as featured on ACLU's 2026 national campaign. And in July of this year, La Jolla Playhouse will host the world premiere of The Family Album, an original musical co-composed by Milk and inspired by Milk's healing journey. I gotta say, wow, talking about that last interview we did, that was in 2020. This one's in summer during the height of the George Floyd Breonna Taylor murder. And I think I was only like several months, I think it was close to a year into my podcast at that time. And it was a very, very different time back then with COVID, the anti-Asian hate, and then, of course, what happened with the Black Lives Matter movement. I look back on this interview recently the other day for the first time in a long time, and we were talking about the experiences that we were dealing with politically and socially. And you had released an EP album at that time. You had performed on NPR's Tiny Desk for a second time. You were also a few years removed from your viral song, Quiet, which is now 10 years old. And since then, I know you've been keeping yourself very busy these days with the musical that you've been working on. And you have shared a lot about your own healing journey, whether it's on mental health, dealing with the chaotic environment that we are living in, and so forth. So, Milk, I gotta say that interview was really one of my favorite interviews that I go back to. And when I've given presentations, I would always play that surprise clip of you playing your one of your songs, which at that time, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was about ready to have a heart attack when you were performing because I wasn't sure if this was going to capture all the audio. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I have the right equipment to capture it, but it captured it beautifully. And that was like one of the best things that ever happened. So thank you so much for
Oh,
coming on. I know you've been extremely busy, so I want to, be very considerate of your time here.
thank you so much. Thanks for having me back. And I know we're all busy, so thank you for your time and always your enthusiasm and your passion. And yes, it's been quite a while since we've spoken. Just thinking about all that has transpired since 2020. We were so young and innocent then. Uh, yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, and actually, congratulations on turning 40. Welcome to the decade. I turned 40 about 3 years ago now,
Oh
and
my God, awesome. It's such a privilege. Like
mhm,
it's so I was just telling one of my girlfriends that I now when I think about how I want to be in this world, the thing is like what kind of woman in her 40s do I want to be?
mm,
It's a different vibe. I feel like I'm putting myself to different standards, but also doing it with more confidence and joy, and it comes from a place of abundance and strength versus
mhm,
like fear and insecurity, you know? So it
mhm,
feels I'm liking it so far, and I've heard from so many people for the 40s are their favorite decade.
mm.
Um, and I'm really feeling that. I'm feeling like I'm enjoying my life right now.
Yeah, I think that resonates with me too because I think, this past year I have been leaning more into my abundance, just as you have just mentioned. And like the 40s that our parents lived through was a very different experience to what it is now. I mean, I think as millennials, we're kind of like navigating or having to rewrite the entire playbook because what we inherited is obsolete now, and how we take care of ourselves and what we vocalize, I think, has definitely played a part in how we, view getting older, especially now that we're in the position of providing guidance, which is a struggle for a lot of us millennials because we struggle with that. But I also want to say, without small little bias there that we're a very empathetic generation, because of what we've had to endure, for so long. And, it was been 10 years. And I remembered the song Quiet when I was watching on YouTube, like during the Women's March that you performed with a group of women. And you wrote that song based on your own personal experiences of assault and in coming into your womanhood. And I wonder about how do you feel about that song now, 10 years later? What is your relationship to that song and how do you feel like it has stood over time?
It's a great question. I feel like Quiet was when I wrote it in my late 20s. I wrote that song to heal from my own experiences, as you said, with sexual assault. And now, as I've grown older and learned, like a more specific term too is within the window of domestic violence. It was like in a domestic partnership, and being a teen when it happened was its own form of processing, like understanding that I was a child. And I spent my 30s carrying that song with me and meeting people who also needed a voice for themselves to encourage their own healing. And so in my 30s, I got to meet a bunch of people who agreed with me, who empathized with me as well. And in that process, I gained more confidence in my story. And more so, I gained this even deeper purpose of continuing to bring more healing or opportunities for healing for myself, and then showcasing it for others so that if it is of value to them, that they can use it for themselves. And part of my healing journey has been writing this musical called The Family Album, uh, which Quiet is in the musical. And another song I wrote, part of my healing journey, is called Oh Mother. um, and that song is in there as well in the musical. And I've been working on the musical from 2021 to now. So it's been a 5 year project, and we're mounting the musical on stage for this summer. The opening night is July 26th, and previews start July 13th to 26th. And if people don't know, previews actually, yeah, previews are a way for us to test what we're doing with an audience, but the audience knows that it's not finished. Like, we might make big changes. We might take
Mm.
it a song, add a scene, or and there might be big pauses because we're trying to figure out the routing of the actors backstage and the costumes and stuff like that. So it's kind of exciting. People can come watch that if they want. And then opening night is July 26th. And in the process of writing this musical, I was able to really hone in on each character within the family. There's the sister character that's inspired by my sister. It's not exactly my sister because my other co-writers have inserted their own stories of healing, so it's inspired by my family, but it's a whole new family now, if that makes sense. And being able to manifest these characters on stage and use these characters as ways to express even different parts of me with internally, um, and and also being able to spend more time empathizing with what my family must have felt when I was
Mm.
going through my experience as a child has really healed a lot of me. And so now when I look at Quiet, my relationship with it is from a place of gratitude. And it doesn't relate to like being in my 40s. It just feels like I'm looking at that song from a place of gratitude and abundance
Mhm.
versus a place of like still processing a lot of the trauma. I think now the trauma has been largely processed. I'm sure there will be little nuances of processing as I get older, but now it feels like I feel more like in the mother mode,
Mhm.
where I want to gift these lessons to other people who might find it relevant. So my job is to craft it in a way that feels most welcoming to others because I'm ready to be at that spot. So
Mm.
Quiet really feels still the same, like it feels like a mantra and a prayer as it did when I was singing it through my 30s. And then now it feels like something I can offer as a tool for the next generation.
Mhm. What do you feel has been, especially with working on this musical, what have you learned from taking this project on? Because it is a new venture for you. Was doing a musical, doing theater, something that was in the cards for you for a long time as well as when you were working as a recording artist? Because I know that you had done songs for like, for film and for TV shows in the past. So I'm curious about your own creative autonomy and being able to determine um the artistic direction for this project.
I've learned a lot from making a musical because it is such a team effort. One of the scariest things, and if I had known what it really was, I probably wouldn't have done it. Embarked on this project as my first musical ever, but to mine my own trauma and life story for a first musical and opening it up where I have co-writers so that I'm no longer in full creative control, because if I'm inviting in these other artists to come express themselves as well, it becomes a co-creation, and that was really really hard. How am I going to relinquish the idea of these family members to become something new, and something that was really scary for me is like, what is my mom going to think about this, because this mom character isn't actually fully her, but it is based on some of her. And so it's a very scary thing. But I think that the healing that I've done with my family, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel confident that we'll be able to walk through this process and that everyone will have
Mhm.
an understanding and compassionate approach, which is so awesome and beautiful. Um, Working with three other genius, hyper intelligent women on this project has taught me so much. So Sam Chance is the book writer, and then Adrian Gonzalez is my co-composer for the music, and Jess McLeod has done a lot of like overall storytelling, dramaturgy, like consulting with us, and she's also directing it. Working with three other forces of creativity has taught me the art of communication, the art of listening to myself when I'm like getting a little nervous about a disagreement or something's coming up for me because reminding my trauma, I'm getting triggered, like,
Mhm.
and how to express that calmly, and how to embrace other people's opinions, and how to feel okay knowing that we may not be on the same page, and that it's been such a powerful form of healing for me that my communication has just improved tremendously through this
Mhm.
art form. And making a musical was never in my deck of cards. I didn't. I always enjoyed musicals, and I was always in awe of how a musical was created. And I always thought like that's way too big of a feat. Like I'm not gonna be able to do something like that. But when we get under the hood, it's like it's totally possible because there's a village of people doing it together. Um, and it just takes a patience because musicals are a slow art form. You know, when some people hear who don't work on this art form hear that it took 5 years to make this, they're like, "Holy crap,
Mhm.
that sounds like a long time." That's actually considered a fast timeline.
Mhm.
Um, so like having the patience and the faith and the discipline to continue returning to something and continue advocating for it has also been something that's been really life changing for me. It's taught me the value of patience in a different way. Um, it's changed my life, that's for sure. And now I'm starting to work on other musicals. I like working on these really slow growing things that I can continue. It's like it's a garden. Like I can't force this to be done quickly. It just
Mhm.
goes at its own pace. So I feel like I get to interact with the forces of nature more, and it feels spiritual to me, which I really love.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing all about it because I think this is so exciting for you to take a dive into this. Are you feeling any kind of like anxiety leading up to it, especially for the opening? What have you been able? I don't know if you've gotten any feedback from other folks that might have seen the preview, or I don't know if it has, gotten to that stage yet. But what are your feelings, and what do you hope would be the outcome for audiences that are attending this?
We have done 3 workshops, which means like we will hire actors and they'll play out the parts, and then we edit and we do rehearsals, and then we invite a select group of people to come watch and give us feedback, and then we also feel the room. Something that's very amazing about musical theater is that there's really no way to theorize how it's going to feel until you just do it on stage with people in the audience, and then the answers come. So it's such a tactile and old school method of telling a story. I love it. Um, I think that we've been working on it for so long and we've really put so much work into it that I don't feel anxious. The most anxious I've felt was really about how my family will feel when they watch it,
Hmm.
because I do explore how my domestic violence and the experience was misunderstood in my family, and how that impacted me, and the importance of me reclaiming the story. And
Mm-hmm.
I've always asked myself, did I tell this story with care? This is my story to tell, but it also involves other people who are still here, still
Hmm.
alive. So how do I do that with as much respect without hiding and like making things vanilla? You know what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
such a
Hmm.
balance. So, um, I feel this. Oh, like the best way I can describe it. So, we had a reading, a workshop in November last year of 2025 in New York, and we at the end of the reading, we got a standing ovation, and I was sitting in the back, and I was like teary eyed, and I was like, "Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, we did it!" And like, "Oh my gosh, what have I done?" Because it's like so honest and
Hmm.
so real. It's like really me putting everything out there. Because Randy, when Quiet came out, I didn't have full control of what people perceived Quiet to be, because the media took it and made it whatever it was going to be. And I have no qualms with that, because I understand that media is a distortion. It can distort things. It was called the anti-Trump song. It was called the Me Too song. It was called all these different things. But with this musical, I get to tell the actual genesis of where this came from. It came from an Asian American family struggling with things that get lost in translation. A young woman who is encountering domestic violence and doesn't even know that she's getting abused, that and she thinks it's her fault. And we package it in this really quirky tone. There's a lot of playfulness. There's like a punk rock there's a punk rock cat band that yells obscenities to express her rage, because the main character doesn't know how to express her rage and dissent. And it's really playful in its ways, and we're really exploring what it means to to stay quiet, and what it means to break the silence. What's the cost of staying silent? What are the rewards of breaking that quietness? And we do it in the way that like was the birth story for Quiet for me, and that feels really cool. Like it took a lot more work, but we've created a context where people can understand more where this song was coming from.
Hmm. I really appreciate you sharing so much of this whole process for you and what that has been like. And, you know, I, I think about the past 10 years and, the last time when we talked, we have seen so much change and what little has changed. Obviously, we're back to that same president the last time we talked to now. But how do you still continue to navigate this world as an artist and trying to find hope as an artist and as a person in this unbelievably unpredictable, chaotic time?
When I think about the challenges of the world, and sometimes when it feels too daunting, I then zoom. Try to play with the art of zooming in or zooming out. And I think it requires this time that we're living in requires us to really zoom out, and to look at a bigger timeline. And so I think about my ancestors a lot, my great grandmother and great grandfather who survived World War II in China, and my great grandfather was taken into a forced labor camp in China during the war, and then he was forced into opium addiction, and then my great grandmother had to raise her three daughters on her own, and not knowing where her husband was, and all that trauma, and then all of that getting passed down, and but regardless, still creating life, still making choices to help her daughters move forward. Was there trauma? Was there pain? Probably. And there's a lot of stories that have been lost through the years, um, because of some of the customs of traditional Chinese families of not talking about the hard things, because they're like, we move forward, we don't want to excavate that. So I think about my great grandparents a lot
Mm.
when I think about this time. Is there was a lot of treachery during that time as well, and as the treachery that's happening now. And then I hold on to some things of like, I was talking to one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement from 2020, and they were saying how they felt like the movement didn't work. It didn't do the things
Mm.
that they wanted it to do. And I totally respected their opinion, and I said, I just want to share with you that that movement shifted so much of the media that surrounded what it means to be black. What does black beauty look like? What does black joy look like? And that really infiltrated my life, and the way that I was able to expose my parents to that, and the conversations I was having with my fellow AAPI immigrant immigrant children's like, hey, we should tell our parents that because of black activism in the 1960s,
Mhm.
Asian people were able to immigrate here in ways that we weren't able to, um, and how we're also interconnected. And I was able to have conversations with my parents about that and be like, "Did you know that?" And they didn't know. They didn't know. They had no
Mhm.
idea. They didn't have the context, and it softens the edges between people who might be guarded um, against each other, and that still remains.
Mhm.
And it's also true that there's more people who feel permission to be outright racist or hateful in this time, and I think all of it is a way to mask a fear and a pain that we're all navigating, that I think really did get amplified during COVID. All the uncertainties, all of the things that have forced us to change and adapt have made us anxious, and we don't know where to direct that anxiety. There's grief that we haven't really grieved. Bo Sia is this amazing poet, and he says like it's too tremendous of a cost to rob ourselves of the power of grief. Grief can it hurts, and it's so scary to feel grief, and it's so hard to hold it in our bodies, but once we do,
Mhm.
we soften, and we don't feel this need to blame other people as much. But if
Mhm.
we are guarding ourselves from it, then it's easier to just blame, because we're trying to not go there. We're trying not to feel that tremendous grief
Mhm.
that every human feels of just being alive, and not
Mhm.
really. It's always been uncertain. There's never been a time of certainty, like other than illusions of certain eras of time where certain populations had a sense of like routine, but other people didn't, so that's all been an illusion.
Mhm.
um, so I think I look at it like that, and then
Mhm.
it keeps me, and then I look at like the music industry. The amount of women that work together now is tremendous compared to what when it was before
Mhm.
2017's Me Too movement. I can't tell you what a different landscape it is. It used to be really isolated. It used to be women working with a circle of men,
Mhm.
versus now women are reaching out to each other. We feel like we need to talk to each other. Like the myths of women being catty with each other, I'm sure that happens, like, but it's not the main narrative in the studios now. Like, we're daring to look at each other differently and question these stories that people tell us about ourselves. Like, women are catty, women are competitive. Like, all of that has shifted.
Mhm.
It's not like it's slower though. It's slower than what we want.
mm,
because at the same time now we're watching this horrendous attack on brown folks through the ice attacks, and it feels so backwards, and it is
mm,
backwards, and it's painful, and it's terrible, and so that's also happening at the same time. So I don't know,
mm.
I'm just trying to hold all of it at the same time.
Yeah, and I think about, breaking generational trauma because I know that it's something I think about, especially as like what you alluded to or what you shared about your own ancestors and what they've experienced during World War II. My parents, and as I've said many times on my own podcast, you know, my dad being from Cambodia and part of Vietnam, and then my mom's family escaping from Vietnam, and then the French colonization, and there is a lot to unpack, and I felt like I was dealing with mental health issues more recently, like about a few years ago, and I thought about how much that generational trauma really affected me later on in life, and that I was never able to properly work through it until I had to, you know, really build my self-awareness and pause.
Mm.
And I know you talked about this a few years ago, like around the same time. I think I was trying to reach out to you because I know you had shared your own mental health, journey, and I was kind of dealing with my own, set of circumstances. And I wonder, what does your own healing look like, but also what have you been pivoting away from? Because I think in the last interview, you talked about having these people-pleasing tendencies. I
Hmm.
definitely had that too. And I think since in my 40s, I feel like I've had a lot of liberation in saying no. I think this
Woohoo.
is ridiculous. There's a joy of missing out or the relief of missing out. I think it's
Yeah,
now
yeah,
called Roma, which I feel like I don't need to be present for everything, right?
yeah.
And I feel like I wonder about what that has looked like in your own mental health journey and trying to understand your own traumas and how to have clarity and work through that.
Thank you for sharing, your own journey with your mental health. I think, especially in the Asian diaspora, the conversations of mental health are still, there's still, there's still room for growth. And the fact that you're sharing that
Mm,
publicly is very important. As a, I'm a sister to an Asian man. My brother's in his 30s, and I'm really proud of how he shares about his journey as well
mm,
because it helps to normalize some of this stuff. And
mm,
um, I'd say that my journey of people pleasing is very much like yours, where I'm able to just care less, but care more at the same time. Like, I care so much about the wellness of humanity that I know I need to be well for that. And if I am compromising my wellness for short term successes of pleasing one person here and there, it's like it's actually kind of, I'm veering off course and off focus. So that's how I've been viewing it, and I've been also asking myself, like, is what I'm telling myself true? I'm always asking myself, what the story that I'm telling myself. What are this, like, being aware of what the stories are that I tell myself. Asking myself, are they actually true? In the art of meditation, to grow the strength of my ability to notice myself and my patterns of thinking have really shaped me and have enabled me to be less anxious, be less fearful, so I can be more present. Because my journey, I think, is redefining what wealth is and success. And I think wealth and success for me means the ability to maximize amount of presence I can have in my life. So whatever it's going to take so that I can be fully here with you, or fully there with my niece, fully there with my nephew or my co-writers and stuff. What does that take? And it takes
mm,
millions of things to make like a feeling of presence happen. Has to feel like we have to understand we are enough. We have to understand that um, we are safe, and we have to understand, like, we've worked hard to be here. We deserve this. Like, all these thoughts have to fuel me in order to be able to be present here now, you know?
mm.
And I
Yeah.
spent like my 20s being not present with people because I
Mm,
was insecure and
mm,
worried and feeling like there's so much for me to prove and all that. And I just want to be I want to be able to love people more deeply and truly because that's really where the joy is for me right now. Um, and so that means also making sure I fulfill my own dreams and wishes and making sure I rest and making sure I set boundaries and let go the people who don't understand and wish them well, but not feel like I need to fix everything. I'm still working on that. Still
Yeah.
working on it, but it feels less difficult. So if anyone's listening and they're in their 20s and 30s, it's like, oh man, it does get better if we are privileged to
Mhm.
keep living and keep working on this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think you hit it on the nail. And I think that I tell this to people in their 20s and 30s too. It's like it can get better when you build your self-awareness and when you start to learn to say no and push back and be like, okay, I don't think I have the capacity for this and not feel this guilt or this like, oh, well, I shouldn't be taking up that much space and realizing, well, I actually did this work. And I think that there's a lot of rewriting the narrative and disrupting harmful narratives that go along the way. And, you've been releasing a number of songs, EPs since 2020. I remember Gold, which was like one of my favorite EPs, and I will say Slow Fade has really been one of my favorite songs.
Thank
I
you.
would play the heck out of that song for a while
Thank
because
you. That
I
means more.
mean, especially when I would just go out for walks in the fall, it's like it just felt like this it felt like was a song that I needed back then too when I was dealing with grad school. And yeah, what has your music direction been like in terms of like recording songs in your own process, and releasing them? Because I know that you were working with a major label and then you went independent. So what has that navigation been looking like in terms of navigating the streaming world we live in?
The streaming world is definitely something that has really impacted artistry on so many levels for me. Um, I would say that after Gold Into Gold, the EP that I did with Atlantic, that was released March of 2020, and it kind of got overshadowed by the pandemic, and then I wasn't savvy enough on TikTok or then to kind of salvage um, the life of that EP because I was more of a in-person live, like go touring, promote
Mhm,
old school way person. And over the years, I've had to wrestle with my own resistance of putting my art online and making what people call content. And I think embracing the change and really going through like almost like an ego death, like getting over my own resistances and just surrendering to the times, um, and knowing that I'm stepping into something that is not fully healthy, but also has been something that's changed my life. Social media is the reason why I got signed to Atlantic Records, and
mhm,
it's a way for me to reach people with an indie budget. And so I think that embracing social media has completely shifted my creative process because the only way that I can justify posting stuff online like 4 times a week, that's like my
mhm,
max right now, is if I'm creating art that brings value to people. So I've been singing these hymns and these battle cries that are addressing the times but in a way that can maybe soothe people's central nervous system. So
mhm,
my music has become that. Now I've become kind of obsessed with these hymns, and
mhm,
now I'm orchestrating them with instrumentation, and I'm crafting a new sound. Um, so it feels like I'm just less precious with things now because it's like, okay, just share hymns online, share hymns, and the ones that hit, okay, take those and create instrumentation. It's much more like interactive with my like supporters and what their feedback is, um, and also just like allowing myself to sing in real time in response to what's happening in the world. Um, I'm inspired by artists like Wells, and he's very, he's a different style than me in some ways, but his approach has always been like if you go to his Instagram page, it's just like all yummy content,
mhm,
for someone to take into their lives to improve their lives versus like having it be super promotional, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. Do you do live performances on the road these days? I don't think you have, unless I'm
I
mistaken. Mm-hmm.
I have, but I haven't been doing like the traditional touring. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
gonna change because of this new sound I'm cooking
Mm-hmm.
up right now. I'm like, oh, this might like mean that I should tour because I think in this exploration since 2020 to now, I have been experimenting and writing songs and releasing, but it hasn't felt like there's been this like cohesive big picture thing that I want to invite people into. So I have been getting hired for events, like one-off events, weekend warrior events where I sing a few songs at other people's like galas or
Mm-hmm.
fundraisers or film festivals. And that's been such a gift because
Mm-hmm.
I get to meet new people and people appreciate my art for what it is and I'm able to make a living. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, but now with these hymns and this new like direction I'm headed, I feel like I am building a sonic world that I can invite people into. So I am kind of like, wow, this is crazy. I'm like 40 and I'm thinking of re entering the artist touring space. A lot of people are like thinking about exiting the touring space when they reach
Mm-hmm.
40. And I was like, am I insane? I was like, probably. And I'll probably be super tired, but also I'll be totally motivated because I see that there's an actual vision that's worth me going and touring and asking people to buy tickets to like come into a world.
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to take me a little bit to build, and I need to focus on the musical for a second. But it's like it's coming to life. I can feel it. So more to come.
Yeah, I hope you come to Chicago because I'm dying for you to come out there, but I would
Oh,
love to.
that's a good one. I and my
Yes.
my dad and mom Chicago was where they immigrated to,
Oh,
so Chicago
wow.
has a special place in my heart. So yes, I will
Oh,
definitely have to come to Chicago.
yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good venues there. There's a lot of good venues there to
I
perform at. So,
yes,
yes.
yeah.
I'll be your
It's a
hype
great
person
city.
for that. So I'll be
I
try to
would
grab
love that,
people.
Randy. Yeah, let's team up. It'll be great.
Absolutely. And I know before you get going, well, if you had to go back to yourself t in 2020 when we had this conversation, what would you say to that person?
Mm. I would say I would say to her, all will be well. Like all these instincts and confusions and anxieties you have, they're all valid and you're gonna find your way. And the more you work with the flow of life versus trying to control it, the better. um, it's all gonna pan out better than you thought. Better than you thought.
Awesome. And where can people find your work and anything that you can refer people to? And obviously buy tickets to the latest musical.
Yeah, people can find. I'm very active on Instagram. Um, so it's Instagram.com/milk MILCK music, and then my website. I try to update as much as possible. I do a monthly newsletter where I have little hand drawn illustrations and personal updates um, and professional updates. So I love when people sign up for my email list because I can get more personal. I feel safer there.
Mhm.
Like I don't post pictures of my niece and nephew or family on my social media as much, but like on the email list, I can get a little more personal because it's just a safer container.
Yeah,
Uh, so
totally.
people can
And
sign up on milkmusic.com. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And also now I think last time I talked to you, you were on the 50,000 follower mark on Instagram. Now you're over 150,000, which is pretty disorienting if you think about that, you know.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, it grew over this past year when I started just letting go and just following my instincts, not over planning, not trying to control. I was just following like what feels right. I was like, I don't want to promote my album, so I'm gonna sing these hymns, and that's what kind
Yeah.
of changed my Instagram life.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And I'm so glad to have this conversation with you. All the
Yeah.
best to you in this new project that you're promoting very soon and also with your own creative direction. And it's such a joy to have you around and all the best to you, my friend.
Yeah, you too, Randy. You're a joy and a light.